Guys, Kendrick is about to change hip-hop, and I don't think anybody's ready for what's about to happen. See, since about 2019, mainstream hip-hop has been on a massive decline with the emergence of TikTok, lowering the goalpost for what's considered a hit, forcing labels to chase what they think can be the next viral song instead of the next game-changing rapper. We've even seen hip-hop go from being the most popular genre in the world to losing market share to genres like country music or Latin music due to the fact that there's been no exciting innovation in mainstream hip-hop in the last 4 or 5 years. The 2010s decade brought us revolutionary artists like Drake, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Mac Miller, A$AP Rocky, Tyler the Creator, Danny Brown, Denzel Curry, and more. And even back in 2006 when Nas was screaming that hip-hop was dead, hip-hop was really just restructuring as we saw the entire soundscape of the genre change from gangsta rap being the most dominant subgenre and artists like 50 Cent controlling the charts to more emotionally vulnerable, introspective rappers like Kanye West take that spot, and later rappers like Lil Wayne completely changing the archetype of what a traditional rapper looks and sounds like as well as how they release music. He'd go on to usher in some of the biggest rappers of the next generation like Drake and Nicki, and I mean, to put it simply, hip-hop was most definitely not dead at that point. But by 2019, we were already dead in the middle of the streaming era, and in terms of hip-hop, that meant the emergence of subgenres like SoundCloud rap, and before that, mumble rap, which saw rappers like Lil Uzi, Young Thug, and 21 Savage give us a flood of new mixtapes every single year which incorporated trap sounds and innovative uses of autotune. It's safe to say by that point, mainstream hip-hop wasn't predominantly focusing on or valuing bar-focused music. And by the 2020s, all the new rappers who were projected to take that top position as the best rapper in the game didn't necessarily focus on having the strongest skill set of lyricism. It was rappers like Playboi Carti, Lil Baby, Da Baby, Roddy Ricch, who at one point or another seemed to be headed towards that #1 top position as the most dominant mainstream rapper in the game. And while none of them focused predominantly on lyricism, and pretty much all of them except for Playboi Carti have arguably fallen off, plus the deaths of icons like Juice WRLD, Pop Smoke, and XXX, it's left a major gap in the culture, and it's left a lot of fans hungry for a brand new face who can change hip-hop and make the genre exciting again. And while we don't have that yet, it's guys like Drake and Kendrick Lamar who have stayed on top, stayed relevant for all of these years, and really just kept hip-hop exciting in general. And someone who's obviously never stopped focusing on lyricism and prioritizing storytelling, metaphors, thought-provoking messages, carefully crafted bars, and really everything that makes a great technical MC is Kendrick Lamar. And he's obviously kept hip-hop more than exciting in 2024 by initiating one of the most legendary rap beefs of all time between him and Drake, causing two of rap's biggest titans to go head-to-head against each other, in 6-minute diss tracks with tons of beat switches, forcing the fans to focus back again on lyricism and making it exciting, desirable to sit down with a song and actually dissect the bars and the meaning of the messaging. Something we haven't seen in a while, and I don't need to go too into depth about the technicalities of the entire back and forth between Drake and Kendrick. If you want more details on that, I have a full breakdown on my channel of the entire beef. The point is, both Kendrick and Drake brought the bars back and made hip-hop exciting again. But now that the dust has settled, the biggest question everybody should be asking is, where does Kendrick and Drake and really hip-hop in general go from here? I think there's a couple possibilities, but all in all, I really think hip-hop is about to experience a massive change, similar to how we saw a massive change in the early 2010s with the emergence of artists like Kid Cudi, Drake, Kendrick, J. Cole, etc. See, it's important to remember that the catalyst of that massive change was the dominance that Kanye West was having in the late 2000s when he beat 50 Cent in a sales battle and started making stadium music and later on combining autotune and R&B and blending them into a subgenre of hip-hop. Now, we're in a very similar place here, meaning there's a lot of parallels between now and between 2007. See, that was right after the golden era of hip-hop. You had guys like Outkast who were retiring. You had Jay-Z who already retired and then came out of retirement to drop a very lackluster album. And you had Nas all of 2006 basically screaming hip-hop was dead. Again, at the time, someone who was bringing something new to the table was Kanye West, and he ended up beating 50 Cent in a sales battle, proving that people were maybe tired of that gangster rap sound that 50 Cent was bringing that was extremely popular in the 90s and early 2000s. And they were more intrigued by the innovative style and sounds that Kanye West was bringing to the table. Now, in the 2020s, a lot of people were crying that same tune, saying that hip-hop was dead. There were no new, exciting rappers that brought something refreshing to the game like the new rappers of the 2010s did. The guy who's been on top this entire time, as everyone's been chanting hip-hop is dead, is Drake. Similarly to how 50 Cent was kind of on top of the game throughout the entire time that guys like Nas or other hip-hop fans were saying that hip-hop was dead in 2006. Now, again, we all remember what happened when 50 Cent went up against Kanye West, who was at the time the underdog in the genre. And it's the same exact situation right now with Drake going head-to-head against Kendrick Lamar for that top position, with Kendrick being the underdog from a mainstream sales perspective. Now, obviously, the beef has been put on pause, so in terms of an actual, formal head-to-head against both of these rivals, it's tough to say whether they'll be bringing that competitive nature to their next album or singles. But we recently saw Kendrick Lamar speak at the Compton Community College graduation ceremony, and on his shoes, he had the words "not like us," which obviously you guys probably know. His massive, most recent diss track against Drake was called "Not Like Us." So it seems like Kendrick Lamar is very much still active in this beef, not necessarily dropping new songs consistently every day like he was maybe a month ago, but this is basically a statement saying, I have the crown right now. I'm going to troll you. I'm not afraid to back down. If you want to keep engaging in this beef, I'm all here. I'm ready for it. Meanwhile, while Kendrick seems to be, in positive spirits and continues to reference the beef by putting the title of his diss track on his shoes, it seems like his opponents, J. Cole and Drake, are currently in much weirder positions. Both of them recently dropped arguably their worst tracks to date, with Drake dropping a parody to Hey There Delilah called Wagwan Delilah, and J. Cole dropping a verse on Cash Cobain's song Grippy, which is undeniably easily his worst verse of all time. Now, J. Cole hasn't said a word about this beef after apologizing to Kendrick for dissing him. We haven't heard from him since he apologized. We've only seen him one time with a fan on the beach and one time in a Tesla dealership buying a Cybertruck. So it seems like he's resting easy at night. He's living his best life. He's not worried about going toe-to-toe against the monster that Kendrick Lamar is. And really, in hindsight, it ultimately looks like J. Cole dropped out of this beef because he realized this wasn't just a competitive back and forth between these guys. It was that Kendrick and Drake really don't like each other and they were absolutely out for blood, which is something J. Cole maybe necessarily did not want because of his past relationship with Kendrick Lamar. No diddy. Meanwhile, Drake kind of seems torn on whether or not he wants to still continue referencing this beef at all. Like, one minute he's sneak dissing on IG captions and making songs like BBL Drizzy, where he's remixing the Metro Boomin BBL Drizzy beat with Sexy Red. And then the next minute he's making parody music and writing good times, summer vibes on his Instagram caption, basically implying that the next release that he has will just be more summer-focused music. But between the terrible verses and musical output that we've heard from both Drake and J. Cole, to the sneak disses or silence from both of them, they just both seem very confused and ultimately directionless on what their next move should be, which is something, at least from Drake, we've never really seen before. And as far as J. Cole, well, he's been saying he's the GOAT for the last 5 years, and he really has been showing it with his output. But dropping out of a beef that you didn't start and just apologizing for even trying to participate in it shows your lack of confidence in your own skill set. And after putting out a song like Grippy, and that being the first verse that you release after this entire debacle, it shows that maybe you're not in that lyrical prime that you've convinced the entire world that you're in for so long. Regardless, the moves that both these rappers have been making in the last month since this entire beef went left, they're basically just setting Kendrick Lamar up to become the #1 biggest rapper in the world right now and ultimately have the biggest album of his career when he releases it. Now, that's the bigger issue we need to touch on in this video because he recently just announced his new live performance, which is scheduled for June 19th. Now, this concert is taking place at a venue that holds a capacity of around 19,000 people, but apparently 100,000 people tried buying tickets for this show, showing that the world does not only just crown Kendrick Lamar champion of this entire beef, but he is ultimately the most beloved rapper in the entire genre right now. Now, this live performance is labeled as Kenny and Friends. None of the promo covers actually have pictures of Kendrick Lamar, so it seems like he's not even trying to take advantage of this massive hype that he's generated with the beef and not putting the full spotlight on himself for the show. And it's also interesting because within this entire beef, a lot of different massive rappers within the music industry have turned on Drake. And as he puts it, this whole beef was a 20v1 where he was not only going up against Kendrick, but he was also going up against Rick Ross, Future, Metro Boomin, The Weeknd, A$AP Rocky, and more. So with this live performance being titled Kenny and Friends, it opens the possibility for a lot of different outcomes that could happen at this show, which can not only change the trajectory of Drake's career or Kendrick's career, but it could change hip-hop as we know it. See, back in 2015, when Drake was beefing with Meek Mill, he dropped the legendary diss song Back to Back and had his OVO Fest that summer. At the time, he was the people's champ, and as he was performing Back to Back, he had a bunch of memes of Meek Mill posted as the visuals to his performance. This was a legendary performance, and it was moments like these that really cemented Drake as the #1 rapper in the world at the time. Now, I know he had a ghostwriter and all that. I'm not saying he was the number one MC, but just from a standpoint of who did the world view as the most exciting rapper at the time, Drake definitely took that position, no diddy. Now, I think it's Kendrick Lamar's turn to do the exact same, taking full advantage of his victory within this beef and the success of his West Coast banger, Not Like Us, bringing that victory back to his hometown, putting on a show in the heart of LA, bringing out his quote-unquote friends, whoever they could be, and showing the world why he's the number one rapper in the world. Now, along with that, there's two interesting different courses of outcome that could come from this. As far as the friends go, again, that could be anyone from the group of people that Drake has been beefing with, that Kendrick Lamar maybe already collaborated with, such as Metro Boomin and Future. But we might actually also see Kendrick bring out his real friends and former collaborators like the Black Hippie Collective or Baby Keem. Now, this would be legendary for a couple reasons, mainly just because it would showcase to the world the legendary collaboration that Kendrick has given us in the past, whether it's Money Trees with J-Rock, Family Ties with Baby Keem, or any of the collaborations he's had with Schoolboy Q. Especially with the phenomenal album that Schoolboy Q had this year, it'd be great to see Kendrick bring these former collaborators on stage, show us the timeless classics that he has with these guys, and remind us why his legacy is the most important out of any of his contemporaries. If he also decides to bring out any of Drake's other rivals, like that collaborator Future, that could be an interesting way of seemingly reigniting this entire beef. And with Kendrick wearing shoes that say Not Like Us on them, it seems he has no desire to take his foot off the gas, and he will continue engaging in this rivalry until he is the unanimous winner. Which, I mean, I already think he is, but obviously there's always higher heights that he could go, always bigger milestones he could achieve. And that brings me into my next point is Kendrick Lamar has never performed Not Like Us live before. I don't even think we've heard him say a word since releasing that song, besides speaking at the Compton Community College graduation. He was definitely making a statement with the shoes he was wearing, but I think it was just a preview into something even bigger that he's about to either announce or do at this performance on June 19th. Where he already one-upped Drake by dropping a hit song as a diss song with Not Like Us, similarly to how Drake did the same thing to Meek Mill on Back to Back. I think he's also going to one-up Drake by performing this diss song in a way more legendary or creative way than Drake did when he performed Back to Back and put all those memes up of Meek Mill. Now, another crazy possibility is that J. Cole potentially will come out at this show. When J. Cole apologized to Kendrick for dissing him at his Dreamville festival, he also shouted Kendrick out as being one of the greatest rappers of all time. And given their history and the fact that throughout Kendrick's entire back and forth with Drake, he never dissed J. Cole again, and given the fact that J. Cole shouted Kendrick out as one of the greatest, and the fact that they were frequent collaborators in the past, even teasing a potential album together at one point, it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that Kendrick ends up bringing J. Cole out at his show. There's been rumors that Drake wasn't too happy that J. Cole apologized to Kendrick. And Drake and J. Cole recently went on tour together. And with every show, Drake was kind of humbling J. Cole, always giving speeches talking about how Drake would not be as great as he is without J. Cole being his competition. Now, while that does seem like they have love for each other, no diddy, it always seems like Drake is kind of giving J. Cole a pep talk as to why J. Cole is very much in that same conversation with Drake and Kendrick, which is a compliment, but it's also like he's kind of sunning J. Cole. And with rumors of, again, Drake not being too happy that J. Cole apologized to Kendrick, and even making reference of this on his diss track Family Matters, where he's saying that Kendrick is always trying to keep J. Cole out of the spotlight, it's very possible that Kendrick comes in with a very calculated move and actually brings J. Cole out, showing the world that there's no bad blood between them, and that really the only common denominator of who everyone dislikes is Drake. Now, this would be an insane move, but again, there have been a lot of rumors of Drake not being too happy that J. Cole ended up switching sides and apologizing to Kendrick. And after Kendrick initially dissed Drake on the Like That verse with Future on Future and Metro Boomin's album, J. Cole ended up appearing on Future and Metro Boomin's second album only 1 month later after apologizing to Kendrick, showing that he does not want any participation in this beef, and not necessarily showing that he's aligning himself with one particular side, but also showing that he's not just Team Drake by teaming up with Drake's quote-unquote ops, Metro Boomin, Future, and even shouting out Kendrick. And if there was some back and forth between J. Cole and Drake behind the scenes about this whole thing, then there's a very big possibility that J. Cole actually ends up appearing at this Kendrick Lamar show. And at that point, it begs the question, does Drake have anyone on his side or any friends within the music industry right now? More importantly, it would show that Kendrick is the people's champ with all the fans and also rappers alike being on his side. Now, the biggest aspect of this entire thing that really is what will change the course of hip-hop is the fact that Kendrick Lamar has been teasing a new album even before this entire beef started. We've been hearing talks from people in his camp that he's been cooking up I mean, he's obviously ready with music. You've seen him drop like 5-6 diss tracks in the span of a month when he was going head to head against Drake. And he's come with an energy that's way more competitive, confident, aggressive than we've seen him in ages. So it begs the question, will Kendrick Lamar make his album announcement at this new show that's coming up? And what type of impact will this album have on the course of hip-hop and on Kendrick Lamar's legacy in general? And on Drake's as well, right? Because if Kendrick Lamar makes even the slightest bit of reference to this beef within his performance on June 19th, that could lead to an extreme catalyst that reignites this entire beef and reshapes the entire narrative of the whole war against Drake and Kendrick. I don't think Drake is the type to back down if someone's going to throw shots at him. So I think if Kendrick Lamar does anything at this show to show that he still wants the smoke with Drake, I don't think Drake will necessarily hesitate to participate in this. I know on the Hard Part 6, Drake made it seem like he was almost going on vacation and he was done with engaging in this entire back and forth. But Drake is too petty, man. And if Kendrick Lamar comes with an extremely creative move that has the entire world talking after his live show, I don't think Drake would be able to live with himself if he didn't respond to that. And I don't see a world where no matter what happens on June 19th after that show, Drake doesn't drop some sort of sneak diss on his next album in reference to the entire beef. I think unless Kendrick Lamar directly comes out and says Drake's name again and comes with that same aggression that he had on Euphoria and Not Like Us and Meet the Grams, Drake will do exactly what he did with the Pusha T beef and continue mentioning it in sneak disses and petty subliminals in his new records. I think the people have spoken, and I think they're tired of Drake being in that number one position and pulling these same moves and coming with a lot of the same formulaic music for the last 5-10 years. I think Kendrick this year has brought something we haven't seen in the game in ages, and he set himself up to have the biggest album of his entire career and ultimately take that crown as the most dominant rapper in the game right now. Now, whether or not he reignites this beef on June 19th is really up to Drake, because I think whatever Kendrick does, if Drake chooses to react or not to react, that's what will be the catalyst and the tipping point for whether Kendrick goes all the way off the deep end again and drops those rumored 5 extra diss songs that he's mentioned to having. But again, regardless of whether or not this beef gets reignited, I think one thing's for sure, this will be a legendary performance and will be the next step or the big announcement towards what Kendrick Lamar's next musical release will be. Now, on a very big side note, Kendrick also has a show coming up with the creators of South Park, so it's possible that any new music he has coming out will be tied to that show. But again, the dominoes are lining up for Kendrick to become the most dominant rapper in the game and really just change the soundscape of hip-hop, bringing it back to lyricism, bringing it back to creative storytelling and thought-provoking bars that are fun to dissect. These catchy, auto-tune drenched, formulaic, soulless, ignorant TikTok hits that we've seen so accustomed to being at the top of the charts of hip-hop for the last 5 to 10 years since Drake and the streaming era have been at the forefront of the music industry. So what do you guys think? Am I kind of over-exaggerating here? Will Kendrick not necessarily change the soundscape of hip-hop with his next album? Are we not leaning more towards valuing bars again like we did maybe 10, 20 years ago within hip-hop? Or will this show change the trajectory of both Kendrick and Drake's career, and will Kendrick reignite this whole beef within this show? All I know is it'll be a legendary night, so if you want to stay tapped into the latest hip-hop news, everything Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and all your favorite rappers, hit that subscribe button. If you stay till the end, appreciate y'all. Hit that like button, and I will catch you in the next one.